Welcome to the Relocated South African, as always, your host Jan Hugo from Lagos in Portugal. So most relocation stories follow a familiar path. Someone grows up in South Africa, leaves for another country and builds a new life there. But today's guest represents a different kind of global South African story. Marco Bouwer didn't just move countries, he built a bridge between them. Through his work with MyChinaLink, he operates in the world of international trade, connecting South African businesses with China and navigating one of the most complex global business relationships there is. Welcome, Marco.
You can leave South Africa, but somehow the paperwork insists on following you. At Apostle, we help South Africans at home and abroad get the documents and visas they need for travel and immigration. Whether it is an apostille, police clearance, an unabridged certificate, or visa paperwork, we help keep one missing document from delaying your next chapter. For more information, visit apostle.co.za or email clients@apostle.co.za. Documents with convenience.
Welcome. Thanks for having me.
It's awesome to have you. I look forward to your story. So I always ask my guests to give us a bit of background. Where did you grow up, go to school, study, and how did you get to move to China?
That's a very loaded question. I was born in Port Elizabeth, where my mom and dad's families are all from. And then I spent some time in the north in Pretoria, but I was mostly raised in the Western Cape, in Cape Town, a place called Durbanville.
And so you went to school and university, or?
Yes, I was in school in Stellenberg High School, which at that stage, I think I was the third. That was back in the day when Father Christmas was still wearing shorts. I think I was the third matric group or the second matric group. It was a brand new school in a brand new neighborhood. And now I hear Stellenberg is one of the powerhouse schools, at least in that area. But back then it was a little different. Yes, and then I studied. I studied a little bit as well. I was a Stellenbosch in Eendrag, Koshuis, and I eventually got my degree. And then it was in 92, 94 time when there was a lot of big changes in South Africa. And somehow, long story, a friend and I started a little newspaper, a community newspaper for the kind of like the rural area in the Western Cape, from all the Winelands area, the Swartland, and all the way up there along the west coast. And we did that for about a year. And as our money was running out for this, Die Burger knocked on my door and said, "Hey, would you be interested in a job?" Which I obviously took with both hands. And that's kind of where my first career, or my career started as a journalist at Die Burger, which is a fascinating time.
I can just imagine. So, and did you cover regional stories or anything in particular?
Yeah, all kinds of stuff. That was at the time when newspaper was still it was just before it started kind of slumping. Digital was a brand new thing. Reading news online was not something people did. You still ordered your newspaper, or it was delivered to your door and the people would get it. That I still miss that, the feeling of a newspaper in your hand in the morning. And I covered regional news, local news, a lot of court news. And I was in courts. One of the things that I covered was there was a lot of gang violence there was a gang wars going on at that time in the Cape Town and the Cape Flats area. And that was very different. Got some death threats. One of the cool stories I have was as a young reporter, I sometimes think you're not quite a human yet. You don't quite realize what you're doing or what you're missing out on. The morning, usually it happens, the editor would sit with all the reporters, sit in a room, and they would go through a list of editorial meeting. Today we're doing this. This is a story I'm covering today. This is a story I'm covering today. And as everybody's done, the editor would usually say, here's 2 or 3 extra stories for the day, something that we got wind of or that's happening or that the local government told us is going to happen. So who wants to cover this? And then you make sure that everything's covered. And that morning, at the very end of the meeting, the editor said, "Okay, everything's covered. I just have one small thing. The president is going to visit this and this school this morning with his entourage or his guards, which was Nelson Mandela. And does anybody want to go?" And it was just silence. Everybody was busy. Nobody had time to do everything else. And he said, "Look, it's Nelson Mandela all you need to do is write a byline and go with a photographer and take a photo of him with the kids. And so I'm like, fine, I'll go. And now that I think back of that, what a ridiculous thing that nobody would just absolutely jump on that. And so I got to meet the president, had tea with him, and half an hour while he was waiting for the street to clear so he can get into his car and the entourage could leave. And that was mostly what I covered, just like community news and court news.
That must have been awesome. I just interestingly heard that today, in fact, today, they're launching a new newspaper in South Africa called Papier, which is going to be a physical paper again.
Wow, that's we'll see how that goes. It's very exciting, but I wonder, I hope they do very well.
Yeah, they say they're going to go digital and physical. Yeah, I heard about it on another podcast. The guy said he's the lady that helps at home to clean is going to be very happy because she'll have a newspaper to clean the windows. So yeah. But now, after a career as a journalist, how did you get to live in Shanghai? Was that a long story?
Yeah, I'm just going to try and keep it to a few sentences. I asked my editor, can I take a month off to go travel with some friends of mine who finished at university? And he reluctantly agreed, and he said, I'll keep your job for you, which is kind of, thinking back, I was very, very fortunate that he would even consider that. And I left and I went to Taiwan to teach English for a few weeks, and then the plan was to go and surf in Bali for a week and then come back and start my life in South Africa. And I was there for a while, and I ended up staying a bit longer. And then one night I went to visit some South African friends, and I knocked on the wrong door because numbers and everything is in Chinese, which I couldn't read. So I knocked on the wrong door, and this girl opened up, and she's my wife today.
No.
Yeah, she's this American girl who was teaching at an international school there. And I was so surprised to see somebody that I thought, oh, she looks like she could speak English and we can actually communicate with each other, because I was very homesick at the time. And then we went back to the US. I got my citizenship, and we both went to study degrees there, the master's degrees. And her agreement was she really liked living in Asia. If we get married, she wants to, at some stage in the near future, go back for a few years to Asia. So we, after being in the US for 7 years and getting both studied and I got my citizenship, we both got jobs in Shanghai. And that's how we went back.
Okay. And now, wow, that's fascinating. Which city in the US? Where did you study?
I studied in Florida and in Miami. And then we also lived in Washington, D.C. And those are probably the two cities in the US that is the most transient. Nobody in Miami or nobody in Washington, D.C. is actually from those places.
That is fascinating. And did you do a finance degree, or what did you study in the US?
I studied an MBA, a business degree.
Okay. My word, it's just fascinating. It just shows you how life works. You knock on a door and the lady becomes your wife. I mean,
yeah, wow. I never planned that.
Jeepers. I think that is absolutely fascinating. So you kind of, because of her, you decided to go to China, not to stay in the US, although that was an option.
Yes, the plan was only to go back for one more chapter, maybe 3 years. We both had 2-3-year contracts with our jobs. I got my dream job in China, of all places, working at an international PR agency. So writing was still heavily involved. And my wife was a school teacher at an international school. And so the 3 years ended, and then other opportunities came up because at the time, China from like 2009 to 2019, just pre-COVID, was absolutely, that is probably the place in the world where it all happened. There was every major company and every brand, global brand on foreign brand, wanted to get us a piece of the Chinese market. And it was just anything went at that time. It was like the hub of entrepreneurship, and all these tech companies just started. And a lot of my friends started companies, little businesses that made it in a big way, and that's still around today. And it was a very, very exciting time in Shanghai.
Oh, that is fascinating. And Marco, going at any time during this, initial US to China. Did you ever consider going back to South Africa?
Every day. Yeah.
No way.
Yeah,
Okay.
every day. It was never my plan to leave South Africa. I was going to go for a month and go home, and I think that kind of just stuck in my head. So I was always looking for opportunities. But I think especially in the time I was in the US, like maybe the early 2000s, it was maybe not a good time to find a job in South Africa for me, especially as a young guy with less than 10 years experience, and yeah, and so and I there was opportunities in the US for me as well, and I had to stay there at times. So I didn't try too hard. I just always kept my eyes open. Like every other month, I would apply for something or send a few emails out and stuff. Yeah.
That's fascinating. And your job, your editor that kept your job for you at the Burger?
I just didn't go back. I think I wrote an email one day and said, I'm so sorry and I really appreciate it. So
My goodness. No, that is really, really, really fascinating. So living in China, is it more difficult than you expected?
I don't know how to answer that question. It is very, very hard to live in China. And going in 2012, it's very hard to explain this to anybody. I always try to explain it to my family and to my friends. China is like one big anomaly. Like, so it's very hard to live there, especially when I went in 2012. There was nothing was in English. People didn't speak English. It was very different back then. It was very hard to do stuff, but at the same time, it was an incredible, incredible place to live. It was a first world city with some of the best public transportation in the world, a lot of opportunities for business. And, things, we call it China speed. Things happen so fast. I'll give you just one example. Like every time we leave China, like every 3 or 4 months, because it's just easier to come back and love the place if you leave it. And we're in Asia, so everything is an hour or 3 hours flight away. So it's not far. And it sounds like I'm a world traveler. It's just because it's easy to travel. It's like living in Europe. Going from Holland to Belgium is not that big a deal, right? But it sounds like so yes. So basically, every time we go back, there's something new. They build skyscrapers in 3 to 6 months here. Big skyscrapers. Whole restaurant chains are gone when you come back and new ones have popped up, or new coffee shops in place of your favorite hair salon, or things like that. It is constantly moving and changing. They use WeChat here, which is like an ecosystem in itself. Not quite Facebook, not quite Instagram, not quite WhatsApp. It's like all of that included, and you do everything with WeChat. It's in the last 7 years, it has become a completely cashless society. So I use WeChat to communicate with people because it's got instant translation. I pay all my bills. I order my food. I get in a taxi and pay for a taxi. I go on the metro with it. I text my friends. I do business on it. I do video calls. Everything that you can possibly think of, you can do on this one app. And the whole country runs on WeChat, basically. And then on the other side, we would go back. I nearly said back home. I would go back to the US, and I had to go and do some banking in Washington, D.C. a few years ago. And it was 7 years since I was there last. And I arrived there and I went back, and this is a big first world city. I went back and I parked in the same parking lot where I always parked, had the same issue with the same parking meter, went to the bank, and the same lady, the same clerk helped me. When I was there before 7 years ago, and the bakery was still next door. They still had the same bread that I really liked. So I bought some, and I walked down the block back to my car, and everything was exactly the same. And that's normal. There's nothing in China. It doesn't work like that.
Yeah.
6 months is a very, very long time here. I equate China to like the digital age where things change so fast and there's so much technological development. And yeah, in that sense, I don't know if I answered your question now.
No,
but
that's amazing. That's fascinating.
China is a very, very different place. Shanghai is more cosmopolitan, so it's an easier city to arrive in. Now it's very easy. I always see the younger people arrive in Shanghai or in any of the other cities. And they were like, oh, this is so nice here. There's Western restaurants. The waiters now speak English because the new generation grew up having English as a subject. And things are easier. You have WeChat. You can help yourself on WeChat. Back then, you were like a baby. Because you couldn't speak the language or didn't know the system, they put you in an apartment and you didn't know how to install internet or ask a plumber to come fix your toilet or anything. You were literally like a little baby. You couldn't do anything for yourself. And now it's a push of a button. So it was hard, but it's easy. And
And yeah.
no, that's it.
And this WeChat, is it government controlled or is it a private enterprise?
Well, since I'm online, I just want to say that China is doing a great job. So yes, everything is monitored and everything is I wouldn't say controlled, but there are strict regulations in place. And it's something that's quite different from the West, where in the West we are used to privacy laws. You know, we grew up maybe more in the US. It's an individualistic society. In South Africa, we still like people are very important. It's a more of a collective society, maybe. But in China, there's no privacy. So in terms of freedom, there are cameras. There's about 10 cameras on every street corner. There's no, and so with that no privacy comes a lot of benefits. It's very hard for the typical Westerner to accept that.
So, Marco, just talk to me quickly. What's life like where you are? I mean, we always think about South Africans. We braai and we kuier and we do all this stuff. What's your day-to-day life like in Shanghai?
I mean, it's big city life. We have in the center of Shanghai is based on the history of Shanghai is after the Opium Wars, the different Western governments each got a concession, and so it was built or laid out and ruled by their own laws. So, like the Americans, the British, the French, the Russians, the Germans, the Japanese, they all had and this area, which is a 10 by 5 mile area in the middle of the city, it was called the French Concession. And it's laid out in the French style with a beautiful big wide streets, tree lined. The trees cover the sky and beautiful buildings, and that's the center of the city. And then on the one side you have Luja Shui, and the other side of the river, which is the financial skyline you always see. And so it's a very, very, very pretty city with a incredible amount of history and incredibly convenient. We've got the largest metro system in the world. There are a metro stop every half a kilometer, I think, in a city of 26, 27 million people. So being in the concession, you never feel like it's a city that's that crowded. It never feels crowded. There's just always somebody around. And you can get food from any part of the world you want to. There's even a South African restaurant here, and I'm having a dinner with South Africans on Sunday. So, I mean, it's good, but you kind of do miss the outdoors and the green, and you miss your own people. I still miss South Africa every day, and it's been 20 years.
I hear you. So when you say you miss the green, so there's not a lot of open area and parks and things where you can.
Yeah, there's lots of parks, but it's parks. It's clinical and clean, and it's a very, very pretty parks and beautiful. But getting out of the city takes a while. So we do as many trips every second month. We travel somewhere in the country. China is absolutely beautiful country. If you go to the different provinces and you go further west, and because the transportation here is so incredibly well organized, the people movement is so good. I get on a metro stop half a kilometer from my house and go to the nearest airport and get on an airplane, and for a very cheap price I go to another province, and we would travel around for a week there and see 5,000-year-old city relics and stuff. So and then you're outside in nature a lot of times, so that is kind of cool.
Yeah, that is absolutely.
But it's not South Africa.
No, of course. I mean, the other question obviously is language. How do you guys cope with the Chinese language?
So I've always worked in an English environment, and I did study quite extensively my first 5 years here, to a point where I told my team when I was in the agency at some stage, please don't speak English around me in the meetings, just speak Chinese. And I quickly realized what a dumb idea that was. The only thing I could really contribute was my textbook Chinese, which was the book in the library is read in the business meetings. So yeah, and if you don't speak it or use it every day, it's such a difficult language. The foreigners that are here that are fluent in Chinese is because they studied it before they came, so they had a base, or they came to China and they studied full time for a year, or they did both and they married to a Chinese lady. So if you come here and study twice a week for an hour, you are not going to learn the language.
Okay,
and so yes, so I get around. It's very easy. Everybody speaks English, and if they don't, I know enough Chinese where I can help myself in basically any situation. And my wife is Chinese is good, so we get around and stuff.
Okay, and reading prices and, ordering food and that kind of thing? Are the menus in English or as
So
well?
they don't use menus. It's all of you. Every restaurant you go into, you scan a QR code and then the menu is there, and the menu you can translate on WeChat, and then you just click on what you want and you pay. There's no people involved anymore. It's kind of strange.
My word, that just sounds absolutely fascinating. You guys don't have kids yet, have you?
No, we don't have
Okay.
kids, but there's plenty of international schools here if we
Okay.
have.
The healthcare, things that we always think about, healthcare discovery and, type of insurance and all the things that we take for granted that we learn in South Africa. What's that like?
Pretty bad when we got here in 2012, but it's gotten much better. You have, just like in South Africa, you have your state hospitals, which has increased in quality significantly. They have the best equipment. The care is incredible. And then you have your private hospitals. So most foreigners, especially if you come with a company or for a company, you will have a medical package or benefit, and you will, as a foreigner, likely go to a private hospital, which is mostly foreign trained doctors, foreigners or Chinese foreign trained. So English language is never a problem, and the care is very, very good. I would say in the customer service, the country is still growing in that area. But for serious operations and stuff, I don't recommend you stay here, just because the care is a different culturally. They do it differently. Most foreigners that I know of the last 10, 15 years would go for an annual checkup in Bangkok at one of the private hospitals there. I mean, it's medical tourism, and it is 5-star facilities with the best medical care, with food included. You go for half a day or a full day, you do all your tests, and it is less than you pay for a doctor's visit in South Africa. It's incredible. Wow. Yeah.
And last question about life, cost of living. How would that compare to the US and South Africa?
A very good question. The US is out of the equation now. It's very, very tough living in the US at the moment. Everything is incredibly expensive, even though the media say it's not. And it's going to get much worse before it gets better. But Shanghai is ranked as the 6th most expensive city in the world. But if you live here, you can choose to go eat at a foreign restaurant or a Chinese restaurant. You can choose to go to a 5-star Michelin restaurant, or to go eat at a little mama and pop store on the corner next to you. The Chinese food is, just like South Africans, food is key to the culture. Food is everything. I would say we live fairly cheap, and it's just me and my wife, and public transportation and medicine and everything is very cheap here. Actually, I would say it's cheaper than Cape Town.
Wow. Okay. And people's incomes, they're probably very wealthy people, but they're not a lot of
there's a lot
very
of
poor
disparity.
people.
Well,
Is it? Okay.
You can, I think I can't remember exactly, but the base salary per hour is very low. And when I hire team members, the accepted entry level salary for a fresh graduate is not high. And then there's, it can go up. The sky's the limit. I think in Shanghai, is a city with the 2nd most millionaires in the world at the moment. It could be the 3rd, but yes. And foreign packages pre-COVID used to be incredible. If you get a corporate package to come to Shanghai, you take it. It sets you up for life. And that's not the case anymore, because China's speed, the Chinese are very smart in the way they learn. And then now the young guys that those corporate leaders hired they learn very quickly. So why hire a foreigner that doesn't speak Chinese or understand the culture when you can hire a local and pay them half the salary?
Yeah, I'm with you. Okay, so let's get to, you worked for a PR agency, you said, for 5 years. How did you get to start your business?
I quit my job about 2 years ago, and it's fairly easy to set up a company in Shanghai or in China. It's called a WUFI, wholly owned foreign entity. That was fairly easy. What I do is called MyChinaLink, and we facilitate business and trade and travel between China and Africa, or Southern Africa.
Okay, and does that mean you travel a lot to South Africa? Do you often go there?
I probably will in future, but at the moment I can do everything from here. I work with a network of partners, both my team in China and then with South African partners or entities back home.
Okay. And you're part of the Lacquer network, obviously.
Yeah.
So has that been beneficial to your business?
Yeah, it's I like the energy and the whole vibe of the organization. It's like a really a can-do attitude, right?
Uh,
And I like the whole like how can I help you attitude.
That's my experience as well. It's just, there's a lot of negative stuff in South Africa, but I find these guys are just really, really positive, and
Yeah.
I think that's the only way to do it. So, what would you say would be the biggest misunderstanding of South Africans about doing business in China?
With this I can speak about for 3 hours. No, the big misunderstanding, I'm just going to be very blunt, is I speak to guys who tell me that and I've been here for more than 10 years now, and I think I know nothing about the culture. I am very culturally savvy, and I speak a little bit of the language. I know how to perform, but you have guys who come here who come to China and they say, "You can't tell me anything about China. I come here once a year for a workshop or a conference or a industry expo." And I think it's a matter of you don't know what you don't know. And yeah, I think the misconception is that I think from both sides, both from the Chinese and from the South Africans, and I know there are very good reasons for that, is that there's, I would say there's mistrust. They're like, we don't know if we can trust them. And there's a lot of examples of things like that happening. But I would say in general, I find doing business with the Chinese is so refreshing and so easy. They are, again, China speed. You ask for something and it happens the same day or the next day. They are always ready to go. And whatever challenge or hindrance there is, they're like, what can we do? Let's do it. Let's do it. It doesn't matter. We'll fix it. We'll get past it. Let's just start. And, that's not always in all cases the best way forward. But yeah, the Chinese are not, relationships are incredibly important here. They have to trust you, but they're always willing to do business. They are always willing to consider all options. And I find that's really refreshing.
That is that can-do attitude. And in terms of link to that, red tape, I mean, if you deal with, you say, setting up a company or dealing with visas, whatever you need to deal with, how difficult is that?
So two things. The one is, I would say in general, unless you work with somebody who's really good, or like our team is very well versed in this, people will help you, an agent will help you, whether you're importing or registering or whatever you're doing, they will help you, but only insofar as the questions you ask. If you don't ask the right question, they're not going to tell you. So you might think you know everything, but you didn't ask everything because you don't know. And that's kind of the part that's really frustrating sometimes, especially if you're not in country or if you don't know something. And then, the other aspect is, yes, there is a lot of red tape. The free trade agreement that was just signed is, in principle, it's really, really good. It puts South African products, it put wine and agricultural products now on an equal footing with a lot of these countries that had much better opportunity than us because they didn't pay tariffs like we had to do. And I'm very excited about that prospect for the future for South Africa and for job growth and stuff. But at the same time, really great agreement, but there's still Chinese regulations and registration processes are very, very strict. And I'm helping a wine register their wine, and it's a 2 to 4 month process. It's not easy, and it's in Chinese, most of it. So if you don't know, you're going to need somebody on the side to help you do it. So it's not a stop start.
Yeah. And if you have to rate on a scale of 1 to 10, the difficulty of entering the Chinese market, where would you put that? Just nothing scientific, just a thought.
It's hard.
Okay.
It's hard.
If 10 is easy, this would be 2 or 3.
Yeah, I would say 2 or 3. Yes, it's very hard. I mean, you can. I mean, I can speak about that for an hour. That's what we do. It's very hard, but if you know the right people, it's not. The market here 10 years ago was the Wild West. 20 years ago was the Wild West. Anything goes. You can get anything in, and the consumers are brand agnostic. They didn't grow up with any of these foreign brands, so they're not loyal to any brand. They try all the different stuff, and there's thousands of stuff coming at them. And so, if you come in to enter the market and to get a foothold, it's going to take patience and it's going to take some time and money.
Yeah, and I assume that market is so vast that
Yes.
if they accept you, you're going to have to produce to satisfy
Yes.
the market.
Yeah. And also, this is something else. I just want to make one comment on that. It's people tend to forget, like it's true what you say. China is so vast, and China can be equated, I would think, to Europe. It's not one. It's one country, but it's like the northeast is different from the southeast, from the northwest, from Shanghai area, from Hong Kong, from all the far western areas. And that has to do with palates and food taste and the type of food you eat and the culture of the people. And in some places, they speak a Mandarin that other Mandarin speakers don't understand. And so what works for one place might not work in another place. So a big multinational company like, let's say, Starbucks or Coca-Cola or something, when they come into one place, they usually focus on the big tier 1 cities. And those are not even the same. I was in a city last year that was bigger than Shanghai that I haven't even heard of. It's called Chongqing. I thought it's a made up Chinese name. Chongqing is a city that exists. It's got 29 to 30 million people in one city.
That
In one
is
city.
just ridiculous.
Yeah, and the consumer preferences there for everyday consumer products is completely different from what it is in the eastern side of this country. So it's very, very hard for a brand to go into say, I'm going to go into China, because what is China? What area do you focus on? So, yeah.
Just to put it in perspective, so Portugal from south to north is just over 600 kilometers. From east to west, about 300 kilometers. Only 10 million people. You're talking about one city with 30 million. I mean, it's just the
It blows
numbers.
your mind.
It's mind-boggling, absolutely.
I had an interview with a girl many, many years ago, maybe 10 years ago that I forgot, that I interviewed her for a role. And at the end of the interview, I asked her, so where are you from? Because she wasn't from Shanghai. And she's like, oh, no. It's a small city. You would never have heard of it. And I said, no, try me. What city are you from? And she said, no, you would not have heard of it. Only 6 million people.
That's scary. You talked about the trust. I mean, is that a thing that's difficult to build, but once it's there, it works? Or is that not your experience?
Yeah, no, trust is, no, it's definitely, it's trust. Yeah, it takes some time to build, like in any place, but um, in business, for instance, if you like, I would, especially with the newer generation, it's easier to build business connections because they're not so much the old style about we must have many dinners together and stuff. And the people, they just want to do business. And so if you've proven yourself that you can provide projects or that you can bring your part of the deal, they will throw everything in it to strengthen that relationship.
I've heard in Japan, for instance, if you go out to dinner, the guys get rat-faced. Is alcohol a big thing in China or not really? Are they more reserved?
No, for these big meetings, these annual meetings, alcohol is kind of a big thing. But I always take the glass and then I pretend to drink. Otherwise, you will be rat-faced. But the new generation who are more, as they go up Maslow's hierarchy, it's a developing country still, but the new generation are further up towards self-actualization. Alcohol is not really a big thing. They're much more sophisticated than 10 years ago. And for instance, in the wine industry, low alcohol, non-alcoholic, and organic wine is very, very popular under the 20 to 30 somethings. And also something low alcohol with bubbly, like what's the sparkling stuff, like apple cider and grape cider or something like that. Or sparkling wine is, yeah.
Very interesting because, here in Portugal, we have what they call Vino Verde. When we order it in a restaurant, I always say bring a straw because it's like cold drink. It's got 9% alcohol and it's extremely popular. And some of them come with a bit of bubbly as well.
It'll do very well, yeah.
Yeah, I can imagine. Another, just a business question. Managing logistics, is that part of your business and supply chains and making sure that things get there? How difficult is that between China and South Africa?
I mean, there's parts that are very tricky, but we do freight forwarding and shipping and logistics. And, exporting, and we can also help, especially with a lot of agricultural products that's coming in from South Africa, because it's bigger volume, so there's bigger risk involved if fruit can get bruised or anything like that. So we can be the person on the ground that helps with that. There's tricky parts about it because if anything happens to the shipment, it could be a big problem. But in general, I work with very, very experienced partners. We have a very strong team. So yeah, the saying is anything is possible in China.
Okay. And things like Forex and banking and so on, you're also able to help people with that?
Yes, it's not our specialty, but we can and we often do. But the retirement age here is very low. And so, because it's such a collective or community society, every day in the parks you see retirees, they get together for games and sport, and for everything happens. There's big dance groups in every park after 5. And then what is funny sometimes is just in China, because things change so fast. A lot of times, even myself, I can't always keep up with the change. So now, in the past, like traffic laws, when I got here, traffic laws was only suggestions. A red light was a suggestion, and now to enforce it, the police would actually stop people. And a lot of times, it's a guy that maybe a 70-year-old guy who's never stopped at a red light if there's no cars coming. And now the police have to explain to him what he did wrong, and because the change is so fast. So there's a lot of stuff like that, I guess. But yeah.
Interesting. And I mean, like when you bring South Africans over and they meet Chinese, and are there awkward moments when you introduce them or go to dinner with them and not knowing about the food? I'm sure that must be some.
No, I think the Chinese in a city like Shanghai, they meet a lot of foreigners. They kind of know if you make a mistake as a foreigner, they like, oh, he's just a foreigner, he didn't know. So it's
okay. And what's your favorite Chinese food?
Well, there's a lot. So we love the northern Chinese food, which is heavier potatoes, meat, thick noodles, or very similar to our Afrikaanse stews.
Okay.
And then in the southwest, you have more like spicy food. Everything is spicy food. And where I live in Shanghai, it's mostly seafood.
Okay. And a lot of octopus, or just
anything in Shanghai or in the south towards Hong Kong, anything.
No dog. Yeah. Is that a famous?
That used to be a thing, but I think they slowly eradicating that. And it's not in the big cities. It was like more in the rural provinces. There was 1 or 2 provinces where it was very, very openly dog meat. But now it's more like countries that are further down the path towards development, like in Southeast Asia. Dog meat is still more of a common sight. I haven't seen that in China in probably the last 10 years. And I think people frown on it now. One of the big consumer trends at the moment, if anybody's listening that wants to have an idea to import something to South Africa, it's a free idea, is pet accessories. Everybody has pets because it's so expensive at the moment. The new generation don't want to, they are very adverse to having kids because raising a kid is incredibly expensive. That's a whole different conversation. But so you get a pet, and there are big, big stores opening up with pet food and pet stores and pet toys and pet clothing and all kinds of accessories. And it has become a massive, massive multi-million-dollar industry in China.
It's interesting, yeah, because we call them China shops here in our town in Lagos. There's at least 4, but like they big hypermarkets. You can buy anything there, and interestingly, all the pet stuff, and they all staffed by Chinese people who can speak Portuguese, but.
Wow.
You can literally buy electronics, garden stuff. There's just nothing, and clothes. A lot of
very convenient.
Yeah, so they've obviously found Portugal too, and other than Temu, a lot of people use Temu now as well.
I mean, I haven't. When I walk on the street outside, we always go for long walks. I cannot remember when was the last time I saw a dog without a jacket or a hat or something on.
Mm-hmm. Now you start seeing that as well. But my wife, I could never send her to China because they will welcome her with open arms. I think she's got a platinum card on Temu. It's amazing what you find out you need when you start looking. So
there's a saying among the sourcing agents in China, the guys finding products and stuff here, which is something we do, like anything you need. They say that in six days, God made the heaven and the earth, and on the seventh day, China made everything else.
That's probably sounds like it's about true when you look at everything. It is amazing. No, it's very getting towards the end. Tell me now, what do you really? I know you said you miss South Africa, but what do you miss most about South Africa?
And just the people and the land, the country, a braai. That I guess that's a cliche. Everybody says that, but it's not so much about the braai itself, because we can have a braai here. It's about the the community, the Samesyn.
Yeah.
It's the getting together and kuier. And kuier is a concept that I don't think any other country has. Maybe, and this is going to sound very strange, and I'm not biased, maybe the Chinese have the same thing, and some of the Asian countries, because it's a collective society. It shows, it's that whole Ubuntu thing, that people are people because of people around you. People are important, right? And you won't find that in a country like the US or a lot of the European countries. Is not. I don't know about Spain and Portugal, but maybe people are friendlier there because it's warmer climate.
Yeah, but I think especially Portugal. I can talk to Portugal, but it's very family orientated. You
Yes.
on a Sunday you go to a restaurant and the whole family will be there. The kids won't be sitting on their phones. They'll be chatting to their family and Opa and Oma, and everybody's there. So it's much more like that. I think they are probably here, but I hear what you're saying. And in that sense, do you miss family? Do you see your family regularly
Oh
or
yeah,
not
no,
really?
every day. It's them every day. We speak a lot. I go for months, and the only Afrikaans I speak, because I'm Afrikaans originally, is with my family, my mom and my dad, and I have a brother and sister in all in Cape Town. Yeah.
Have they been over to see you guys?
No, nobody's been here. I usually go back. I try and go back once or twice a year. Setting up this business, it's a little harder because I have to really focus on stuff here, but I'll go back again soon.
Okay, and just on the friend story, I mean, it must be quite difficult to integrate with the Chinese to make friends.
Yeah, it is quite hard. Yes, it's also a different social interaction is kind of different here. It's also a long topic, but in general, yeah, you are kind of make friends in your business relationships. That's the relationships you build. And yeah,
And
so
with your wife's work with teaching, do you meet other teachers and other people in that sphere of life?
yeah, we tried being part of big campuses for foreign enclaves. We tried to have our friends outside of those campus areas. It was just a healthier situation, so you don't see people 7 days a week.
Mm, mm.
But because usually it's in a neighborhood, everything is contained there, and so we've always had our own circle of friends, and in general, what's good about a city, like everybody who lives in an international city, you will know that um, some cultures, especially Western cultures, are harder to just make friends. But in a city like here, you're all in the same boat, and so it's much easier to connect and make friends with people because you're all experiencing the same thing, and you encourage each other and kind of go through the same stuff and support.
Excellent. Marco, and last question, if you think about how your career and life has worked out from a journalist to running a business from China, any regrets? Would you have done something differently if you think back now?
You can leave South Africa, but somehow the paperwork insists on following you. At Apostle, we help South Africans at home and abroad get the documents and visas they need for travel and immigration. Whether it is an apostille, police clearance, an unabridged certificate, or visa paperwork, we help keep one missing document from delaying your next chapter. For more information, visit apostle.co.za or email clients@apostle.co.za. Documents with convenience.
I mean, you think about how your career and life has worked out from a journalist to running a business from China. Any regrets? Would you have done something differently if you think back
Oh,
now?
wow. Maybe sign up for a lotto ticket? No, no, I would never have foreseen the way things have gone ever. So no, I wouldn't say any regrets. Maybe spending a little bit more time in South Africa, but in general, I've been very, very fortunate. I've traveled all over Asia multiple times. I've been all over the US, and I'm going back next month again to do a 2-week road trip to go see some clients and some family. So that part is really nice. But, I would give half of that up to spend a week in Cape Town.
My word, I can imagine. Oh, well, that's always something to think about. But, you're part of the Lacquer Network. You're dealing with South Africans. So I can only wish you well. Marco, I think just to say you can be found at MyChinaLink.com. That's right.
Yes.
And you also do tourism. It's not just business.
Yeah, we're actually bringing a group of South African businessmen and women over in October on a discovery trip to China, and last year we did one to Rwanda for a group of Chinese investors, and so we can go both ways. And then we also do some travel consulting and travel planning for Chinese outbound tourists to South Africa. And then lastly, sorry, it's a long answer, is we also offer training to kind of make tourism vendors and hospitality vendors and hotels and staff and stuff and guides to make them kind of China ready. Because there's very specific stuff that's Chinese travel expectations. So at the end of this month, we are doing 2 webinars for business people traveling to China, day-to-day effectiveness, what you need, and then going to like the Canton Fair, which is one of the biggest fairs in the world, which happens next month. We offer like a pre, during, and a post kind of preparation webinar.
Awesome. Well, we can talk for hours, but really, thank you so much. Thanks for being a guest and sharing your story. It's just absolutely fascinating, and especially being the first guest from China. Thank you, Marco.
Thank you very much for having me. I really appreciate it.
As always, if this episode resonated with you, you're welcome to share it with someone who might need to hear it. And you can find more episodes of The Relocated South African wherever you listen to podcasts. Thanks for listening, and I'll see you next time.